Welcome back to the Social Kick Podcast. I'm Brian Lundquist, joined by a full crew digitally this evening, Dr. John Mullen, Luke Paddington, and from the East Coast, Sergio López. What's going on, Sergio? How are you?
I'm good. I'm living the dream, they say, so that's good. Life is good. Just interesting. But
you're always living the dream. You're just getting off recruiting and that sort of stuff, huh? Living the college coach life.
Yeah, we just had a call with somebody that I think was very important for us. So hopefully we get the recruit, and we keep moving forward. Recruiting is a very interesting thing.
Yeah, and a huge time investment too. Good. You must be it's good. It's a good thing you're a fun guy to talk to, because that's probably the most critical skill with recruiting.
Well, one of the things is that we have Albert Subirats, that you know him. He's our recruiting coordinator, and JC Dyer, she's from Toledo, and she was a very good distance swimmer. She's our women's recruiting coordinator. And my first year here, I brought 16 girls and 10 guys, and there was too many. So I told them, please don't let me talk to any kid until you believe that they're going to be good for the team. And also, I think if you want to win NC2As, it's a numbers game, and it has to be a low number. You cannot have a team with so many. So I do recruiting, but I don't do a lot of it until they tell me who to talk to. Just because, unless it's somebody, there's a top swimmer that I know, the coach, or somebody that I need to connect right away. Because if I like somebody, I have a hard time telling them no, and that's not good.
Man, it's funny you said. Like, I remember Florida for a number of years was carrying so many guys. It's like they had 15 non-scholarship guys on the team. So where we would have maybe 30 guys, they'd have 40. And Texas was doing the similar thing where they had just carried so many people. And then like Mike's junior year at Auburn, we had 21 or 22 people qualify for NCAAs. But of course we couldn't bring them all. And we almost got beat by Arizona, who had 9 guys. It was just like, they had Simon Burnett and Lyndon Ferns and, Subarats and these guys, and they almost beat us. I'd love to talk to Subi about that someday, because, man, it was like, you don't need the numbers.
No, I think it's a numbers game, and it's a low number. You don't need, I know when I transferred from Indiana to the American University, I think for 2 years, we were top 20, and we only had 1 swimmer. So if you have eight good swimmers, and you can do a good job with the second taper or just getting them there ready, you can win NC2As. So the hard part is,
I mean, you guys are saying that, having maybe smaller numbers and all that, but there definitely was a lot of programs, even Ohio State and I think Indiana, Brian, like you were saying, like Texas, were carrying big teams, kind of like a club team, just kind of keeping them in the waiting, or seeing which kind of diamonds come up from the rough, or late bloomers, especially on the male side.
Yeah, my freshman year, David called it, the Olympic Hopeful team and the Olympic Hopeless group.
Positive Coaching Alliance. There we go. Let's hear it.
Don't do that nowadays. When I was at Bolles, I got tired of like the senior kids that they get, like, once they sign with a program, or they decide they feel that I deserve a vacation. I don't need to train that much. So one day I got very kind of emotional, if you want to call it that way, and I put all my swimmers in one room. And normally I carry in my group anywhere between 80 to 100 swimmers when I was at Bolles. So I put them in one room, and I told them, hey, I have created the non-committed group. Just call that group non-committed. It was like, I got calls from all the parents. What are you talking about? and I told them, I said, look, the non-committed group is going to be seniors or juniors, kids or college kids that come to train with us in the summer. They don't want to train every day. You don't have to. You pay the dues. We'll have a practice for you, 6 to 8 aerobic practice. You can come 1 time a week, 5 times a week, or 6 times a week. And consistently, you're going to be in good shape. You know how many swimmers I had in that group? The first year
A
I
lot.
created. Just give me a number.
20.
Did you put them there or they volunteered there?
Oh no, they volunteered. I didn't.
They volunteered.
Oh yeah. 55.
Jonathan, 55.
55.
Yeah,
They're not
55
I knew it was
committed.
gonna be big.
Now, Jason Kalanok, the assistant coach at Texas A&M, or the associate head coach, he worked with me, and I'm put him in charge of that group. I said, "Hey, Jason, from 6 to 8, you run that group while I'm doing other people, and I'm gonna give you the practice. And you don't correct the strokes; you just give them the practice." So the last thing, I don't remember if it was 5 200s or 8 200s, whatever it was. So Jason comes up to me, says, "Sergio, we have these 200s, but we only have time maybe to do 1 or 2. What should I do?" I said, "Tell them the set and tell them that at 8 o'clock they can leave." So 8 o'clock, I'm going to exaggerate now, but let's say that everybody minus one person left.
What?
So that's how everybody looks. Around 9:30, and I don't know if you've ever been at Bolles. Bolles has a very nice parking lot with all these, trees. And around 9:30, I walk out to go, I don't know, to the somewhere in the school. And most of the kids in that group that left at 8 were sitting in the cars, on the trunk of their trucks, and chatting with the other guys for an hour and a half on the parking lot.
They're just there to have
Why
fun.
are they there? Sergio, why are they there? To get a t-shirt?
You get called the party crew, the party group. Come on now.
The reason why I created the committee, it doesn't matter. Look,
Why did they go?
You have to look at it this way. You cannot fight with these people anymore, and you cannot fight with their parents. But if I have 55 swimmers at $125 a month, I get another $8,000 that I can give to the assistant coaches and pay for things.
Right.
And I have the space to do that. So why not? Make
Yeah.
sense? So it's a business side. And to me, I didn't have to lose a minute of my sleep besides writing a very generic practice.
Man, that makes me angry. Sergio, where I come from, my brother swam for Bolles for, 6 months before Sydney, and it was an honor. He worked his butt off.
Absolutely.
It was an honor. You listen. Larry Schoaf was the coach at the time, and you listened to what Larry. What he said, he did, and he made it game.
I can tell you one thing. I grew the team from 200 to 500 in 2 years. And I needed to grow the team, not for me, because now it's kind of, we're going to talk with no filter here. I didn't make any more money if we had more swimmers. That's a very interesting thing, So I just wanted to create a good place for the people in Jacksonville in the area to swim, We only had around 20 to 25 boarders. Everybody else is from town. So you're talking about 500 families. And we are creating a very good situation. So to me, to have 55 swimmers, even college kids, that come in, that they don't want to train anymore, they just want to have a service, I can do that. Why? Because then I can have somebody like Jason, that now is one of the best college coaches, or somebody, and pay them more. And you have to look at it that way.
That's how you rationalize it. Because I said no. When I came to America, I got offered a job at a club team here. And at the end of the interview, when I accepted the offer, I said, I have to ask you one question. If a swimmer is not committed, what do you do? Oh, we keep them. I'm like, why? Because it's a business, Luke. We need the money. And I couldn't get past that. I couldn't
But it's
rationalize.
also best for the kids, right? I mean, obviously we're usually talking about elite swimmers and elite performance, but we have to think long-term health for these kids and what's fun for them, what's going to keep them participating in just any exercise, right? If they hate swimming, as we all grew up in eras when people did tons of yards and swam into the ground, and swimmers that were there because they hated it. If you can create a fun environment, that's fun. Like Sergio said, you can have some more money, pay for some other coaches' salaries, employing people, and look at the long-term health and love of not only swimming, but hopefully exercise.
And for us, look, for me, our goal was whoever goes into the high school group starts as a freshman there, our job is going to be to place him into a Division I, Division II, Division III school and teach them how to understand to be a collegiate athlete because of the advantages that you can have. And I can proudly say that in 7.5 years that I was there, 210 of my swimmers went to college. 210. So to me, I did my job perfectly. Like, and I would bring around over $3 million of revenue to the school every year. So I did that more than enough, you know. So I have to think, you know, I grew to 500 families, but I also grew from 11 coaches to 19 coaches.
Whoa. Wow.
You know, a lot of these coaches now are head coaches, or they're working at the college level, and young people, or they're, you know, and I think that was important, you know.
You know, one thing you did that I was really happy when I heard you were doing it was the Jacks 50, because I thought what a wonderful experience for those high school kids to get to see these world-class athletes racing. I mean, it was almost like the original Skins and FireSell, but you did that there. And you create those opportunities for these high schoolers to see Cullen Jones and all these swimmers come and race. Fantastic.
But you don't want to know what goes behind that. Try to do that. You don't. You have some of the swimmers. Hey, listen, my first year, you're gonna kick yourself. I cannot give names of which swimmers, but you have some swimmers. No. You have some swimmers and their families that they wouldn't pay the $10 to watch the races, and they would be outside in the fences watching these Olympians, and all the money went to help underprivileged kids to learn how to swim. I created a foundation.
Yeah, I saw that. That's awesome.
My second year, one of the sponsors that I had backed up. I lost $21,000. Then my wife almost cut my head because I put $21,000 of our money. And one of the sponsors just cut me off. I thought had a good reason, but later on I found out, because he told a good friend of mine, that the reason why he helped me was because he wanted me to help his child to get into the dream school. And that's what I did. But I did it because I did it with everybody. I didn't even have an idea that this guy was going to help me. And he left me hanging with a big sponsor the following year because his kid was already at that school, and that's it. So talk about the Jack 50. We did the Jack 50 for what, 5-6 years?
Wow.
Yeah. You know, so Sergio, I want to get into. So I'm very close to George Bovell, and George, so I'm 50s of you. He texted me when he found out that I'm speaking to you. He says that, I'm going to quote him. He says that Sergio, now George has been to 5 Olympic Games. He's swam under some of the top coaches in the world. You know, as you know, he says Sergio is the best coach in the world. Maybe he never swam for you.
No. I talk a lot of times. Yeah, I've recruited his brother.
Nick. Yeah.
And I talk with George a lot, many times. But that's nice. Huh?
But you swam for some of the most legendary coaches of all time, Doc and Joseph and stuff. So maybe let's go back to that. I mean, what you talked in the IG Live about what Doc taught you, and then your move to America and because of Joseph. You want to talk about that and the coaching?
Yeah, I think. When at the 1986 World Championships, Doc Councilman Sammy Swim, that was one of the first international meets that I went, and he told one of the guys, his name is Juan Carlos Vallejo, that he was a mid-distance swimmer. They swam at Indiana. He told me, hey, if you tell Sergio if he wants to come to America, I think he has a lot of talent. We'll give him a scholarship. So Kimbo, we call Juan Carlos, we call him Kimbo. Kimbo told me, he said, hey, Sergio, if you want to come to Indiana, they'll give you a full scholarship. So
wow.
My first thing was I had to ask my mom, because my father left us when we were little kids, 3 years old, something like that. And my mom worked so hard for us that I couldn't leave her. If she, don't ask me why, but I couldn't unless she told me to go, And I went and I told her, and she told me, pack your bags and go. So that's what I did. I packed my bags and I came to Indiana, Bloomington, Indiana. That was a big shock. That was like going to, you come from Barcelona. You grew up in a dictatorship. That it's really interesting because I used to sing the national anthem and in the core and how you call the yard of the school with my hand lifted like that because our dictator was friends of the guy from Germany.
Whoa.
So we grew up in if I spoke Catalan and the police catch me, you get beat up. Or, my brother, for example, wouldn't speak. We spoke Catalan at home because it was illegal to speak outside. My brother wouldn't talk for years with us at home because he didn't want to speak Catalan when he was a kid. So there was a lot of things, and then you go through a transition democracy and all this, and then you get to come to America and the country of the freedom. I land in freaking Bloomington, Indiana. that I realized that I was 19 years old, and I realized I have more freedom in my country that I can't even. I didn't have any freedom in Bloomington, Indiana. It's you had to be 21 to go out. I used to go out when I was 14 years old until 5 in the morning. Now I'm 19 years old and I cannot go and sit because I'm an adult. I cannot go and sit at a bar with a friend. I don't have to drink, just to chat and listen to music.
Right.
I couldn't comprehend things like that. But I can buy a gun or I can drive when I'm 16.
Yeah. I don't understand that at all either. Yeah.
So all that stuff was such a big shock. And then what happened is that I was there illegally, and because I didn't pass the English test, I didn't know any English. So I was training with the team, and somebody from Iowa, I think, was getting his master's degree over there, and they saw me training with the team, and they called Iowa, and Iowa, I think it was Iowa. Iowa calls the NCAAs, and the NCAA calls Doc Councilman, and Doc Councilman tells me, "Yes, Sergio, you cannot train here anymore." Wow. So now I have two things: either go back to Spain, or I figured it out and I stayed there. Now I couldn't go back to Spain because when I left, it was a big deal that I left my coaches and all that.
Yeah.
I was 1987, the year of the Olympic Games. So I figured it out. I talked with a high school team over there, Bloomington. I don't know if it was Bloomington North or Bloomington South. They had a Puerto Rican coach. No, they had a Brazilian coach and they had one kid from Brazil and one kid from Puerto Rico training. So I asked them, and they let me train in a lane. I bought a book, went to the library, taught myself English for 8 or 9 months, 8 or 9 hours a day. I work in the kitchen at Delta Gamma. They gave me food for free. I washed dishes. I tried to pick up some ladies, but it didn't work out. But I washed dishes. I got some food, and so that's what I did between September and December. And actually, I went to Canada to swim a meet, the Tovico meet.
Of course, yeah.
And I was the first guy. I was in shave and taper, and I broke 4 national records in Spain. They were like praising Doc Councilman. Oh, Doc is such a good coach. And the poor guy couldn't coach me at that time. If I could sneak in the pool, that was a lucky thing. And I was the first guy that beat Victor Davis in Canada.
Yeah.
Wow. And so all this happened. It was a very interesting situation, and that's how I stay in America.
So you taught yourself, and then you eventually passed the TOEFL on your own. I don't know if it was called that at the time.
Yeah, I passed the TOEFL. I didn't have to there was a rule, the NCAA rule, that I didn't have to take the NCAA test because I graduated from high school in 1986. So before that, you didn't have to take the NCAA test. So I only needed the TOEFL. So I kind of passed the TOEFL, even though I don't, I couldn't speak in English, but I kind of figured out the test. And, with multiple questions and multiple answers and all that stuff, you can figure out. Sometimes the answer is in the next question, and it's in this question. So after repeating every exam for 100 times, I passed that test.
I remember being at when Cesar Cielo first showed up to Auburn, and he didn't speak English, and he was training or learning to take the TOEFL. And I don't think that he passed it the first time either. And it was an odd time because it's a similar story, right? He's like, we weren't ready to send him back, but he was, it took a little while for him to learn. He spent a lot of time training with the club team, and Caesar's notorious for crying a lot, and he cried a lot in those days. Just, it's a tough adjustment, right? And that must be a crazy tough adjustment, moving to a different country, and especially to one of the best training groups in the world.
And I want to say, you did all that, and you beat Victor Davis, who was it a reigning world record holder at the time? Definitely the reigning Olympic champion. And you beat him in his home turf. I mean, that's incredible.
It was very funny. It was very funny because I beat him in the 200. And it was kind of random, and then we swim in the 100, and Victor was a very tough guy.
Yeah, he ripped out some spitting lanes.
Yeah, very, very intimidating. So I remember my 100 was very bad always, So I remember sitting in my chair in the final, and we had Victor Davis, and I think there was Etienne Dagon from Switzerland and somebody else. And I'm sitting, and I could feel that somebody was looking at me or something, And I turn around, and here's Victor Davis, and like looking at me like, I'm going to beat the crap out of you, or whatever it is. And he beat me by a little in the 100, but I broke the national record, so I was so happy and excited, But the good thing about Victor, at the 88 Olympics, we never talk in Canada, but at the 88 Olympics, I was walking in the village, and the Canadians had these bicycles that they were riding around, And Victor was in one of the bicycles, and he was on one side, and I was walking the other side, and he got out of his way, and he came up and wished me good luck. And I was like, whoa, it was a good, interesting thing, because you always heard that he was such a tough guy, always fighting and this. And but he was, I don't know, the thing that I remember, he was very nice to me.
Well, he's Canadian. Canadians are nice people.
Hell of a swimmer, though. Hell of a swimmer, and a tragic way to die in Montreal. Yeah.
Well, so then you get on the team, and then you start training with Doc Councilman, and a legendary era of IU swimming. What do you remember from those days?
Well, the hard part with me is this. I went to Indiana because Doc Councilman was a legend in my country, and it's like everybody studied the science of swimming, and it was like the Bible. And
of course,
when I got there, the team, Doc had Parkinson's, and he was 69 years old. He was struggling a lot, the poor guy. I would sit with him 2 hours every day, between 1 and 3 and 3 to 5. We had 2 practices, so you could choose which practice. So I always sat with him, and sometimes he would tell me the same story 10 times, because of his condition. But I always sat with him, and always tried to absorb whatever he was offering, The hard part was that a big percentage of the team didn't care, So after my freshman year, when I only swam 1 semester, I really wanted to leave, but I thought, okay, if I can speak a little bit of English, maybe I can help the team become a team. And my sophomore year was a disaster. We had an assistant coach that it's not a very nice guy. He doesn't coach anymore, but he was very toxic and divided the team. And instead of respecting somebody like a legend, I was like, it was very bad. So I made a decision to transfer, and I went to Doc's house. This broke my heart, and I sat down in his house, and I told him, I was like, Doc, I think you need to retire, and I need to leave.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I told him, I was like, it's like he was losing track of not, of everything that he's done, and at one point it's very hard to let go, but he needed just to let go, and so he was very kind with me, and he understood, and I think he coached 1 more year, and then he retired.
That's right.
And I transferred to the American University, a small school in DC.
Yeah.
The reason why I transferred is because when I swam against Michigan, my last dual meet with that year, Mike Barman came up to me and said, okay, Sergio, I heard that you're a very good trainer. My coach, Joseph Nagy, has asked me to find a training partner. Would you want to come and train with me? And at that point, I wanted to look for schools, So if I went back to Spain, I couldn't really go and visit any schools. So I decided to go and train with Mike. And I was living in his house. I was training with him. And through the process, I met Joseph. He's Hungarian, and we connected very well. And I wanted to go to Texas. I became very good friends with Eddie. I really somehow, I like to watch coaches. So I watch it. I couldn't understand much from the words, but I watched his dynamic and the way he talked, and I felt that would be very good for me. But at that point, he didn't have any foreigners, and I needed a full scholarship. So then I went to visit UCLA with Ron Ballatore. I went to visit Arizona with Frank Bush. Long story short, I visited 3 or 4 schools. And one day, Joseph Nagy came up to me at practice and said, Sergio, what do you want? What are you looking for? I said, well, I just want a place that I get a degree. That's why I came to America, and a coach that will help me for the Olympics in 1992. It's in my hometown. So he said, well, if I get a job somewhere, because, Joseph Nagy was coaching for Kurt Burke, and Kurt Burke had many different sites, and they were training at the Maryland University, at the American University. So Rick Krull helped him get a job as an assistant at the American University. I was already back in Spain. They sent me the papers. I didn't know anything about the school, and I went to the American University.
Huh. That's an interesting thing for one of the best swimmers in the world at the time to approach you. Was this before Berriman took off, or were you still faster than him at that time?
Oh, no, he was faster than me. But we've been competing for 2 years, freshman and sophomore year. My freshman year, I think I beat him at NC2As because I got third. And I was very skinny. I never lifted weight. So off the blocks, off the walls, I lost everything. So I think I got third by a few tenths of a second, a couple tenths of a second. But Kirk Stackel and Mark Miller from Wyoming, 2 big guys, beat me because of the pullouts and all that stuff. And then he heard that, I never train a lot, but when I was with Doug Councilman, he would make me do some 400s breaststroke, and I would be with the freestylers. I would be going 403s, 402s breaststroke. And so I was a pretty good trainer. And so Mike Berman heard about that, and he just.
But it's a very interesting story too, because Joseph has the guy pioneered a whole new style of breaststroke, and he also coached a lot of the guys who beat you, compete against you in '88 final, right? So how did you come to grips with that? A very strong principled technique guy, and the coach of your competitors, was that attractive to you?
No, it's a choice you make. Joseph and I, I'm the godfather of one of his kids. But you have to understand that the psychology behind this. Joseph asked him. And now I know. Joseph asked Mike to ask me, because Mike at the '88 Olympics, he was the favorite to win.
Yeah.
Or one of the guys to win them, and he got 4th, and I got 3rd. Think about that. Yeah. And the way Joseph thought is you need to have Sergio with you so he can remind you every day that he has a medal and you don't. And I'm not joking. It's it is okay, I stayed there for 3.5 years because I wanted to be, and I got better. At one point, the world record was 2:12.9, and I went 2:12.2. Well, I got beat by my training partner that went 2:11.9 or 2:11, but I improved, and I learned a lot. And I learned a lot from Joseph about how to think, training. But one of the things that Joseph went to Spain to give a talk, and a lot of the coaches asked him, what have you changed of Sergio's technique? And he says, nothing. And one of the things too is that Joseph will teach us how to think. And one of the things is not everything works for everybody, but it will teach us how to think. But when you have somebody like Mike Berman training, and then you have Rock Santos came to train with us, and he had a big learning curve to go. But when you have people like that training, you learn from your training partners, and you imitate, you think about it. And that has happened to all of you. So Joseph was very good at telling you, we didn't do many drills. We did that, but we train, and then we'll give you cues of how to correct your hand, your head position, how to lunge forward, how to think about your feet. So he will give you little things that you had to think about how to put them together. If that makes sense.
Yeah, the one question I had, the Mike Berman dry land training and all that was, legendary at the time, and still a lot of swimmers use it. And you mentioned not doing weight training and things like that. What are your thoughts on Barrowman's dry land? And I'm sure you were doing some of it too as a breaststroker at the time. And what are your thoughts on it now?
Well, I'm not gonna call it Barrowman's dry land because
there you go. That's fine.
I kind of like, I'm not gonna take offense of that, but I trained with him for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And when the video came out, he didn't even tell us anything.
Oh wow.
I've been using the same dry land, exactly the same, for 23 years. 24 years. Exactly. It has been some modifications just because things change, But we do, like when we were at Bolles, we didn't lift weights. So you have all those guys that never lifted weights until they went to college. Maybe the few months before they left, we started to put them in the weight room to teach them the right form. But to me, the medicine ball, the way you move and the way you can absorb the energy, because people think, one of the things that I learned is that the exercises, the routine that we did is like works around 50 to 60% of the muscles that you don't work in the water, but they supporting muscles. Right? And it's a very aerobic and aerobic type of work. So we do it for anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour, And what it does, a lot of people think that they start the medicine ball with 8 pounds, and 2 years later they want to use 20 pounds, and that's the totally wrong concept. Because it's not about the weight. It's kind of like Tai Chi. It's like when you do the medicine ball with your partner, it's about how you absorb the power that person is sending you, and you throw it back. How you guys. When you were a swimmer, the best times that you swam was when you were generating energy as you were swimming. You felt like, wow, this is awesome. Well, the medicine ball is the same thing. And you can do an hour of medicine ball and just do an hour in the water. And that gives you more benefit, in my opinion, than 10,000 yards in the water.
Well, I couldn't agree more when we're starting to look at where swimming programs are lacking and where strength conditioning programs can help. Or like you're saying, you're working the supporting muscles and getting a little bit less out of the aerobic work and trying to actually do some power training that swimmers lack so much, especially in age group programs. So learning how to use the med balls, like you're saying, can be very, very helpful.
But for example, you take somebody like Marcello Ciccherini. When I coached him at Marcello was, when he was with us, he went 46.6 in a relay in a 100 freestyle. And at the World Championships, hasn't done that again. And not because of us coaching him, but when I was coaching him, we took him out of the weight room for his upper body a lot. And we did a lot of medicine ball. And what I told him is like, hey, look, Marcelo is the type of guy that picks up one weight or just look at the weight and he gets bigger. So if you cannot finish the last 25% of your 100, why you need to have more power?
Yeah.
Shane Ryan, when he came to train with us, I took him out of the weights for a while, and he went from 49.7 that he did the year before to 48.6 by April, from September to April, at nationals. And I'm not saying it's because of us, because I always tell the guys that you will always have to thank your past coaches for what you do when we train together. But sometimes people think that the weights, the power is like if I'm in the weight room. At one point, it's not relevant anymore.
Yeah.
Because I believe it's about the subtle, consistent speed that you can sustain in swimming. That's it. It's not about how powerful you are, because if you cannot finish the last 25% of your race, what does it matter that you can bench press 300 pounds?
That's how you swam. That's how you won your medal. You passed that Russian guy in that last bit in the end. Yeah.
And for me, it's not difficult to understand that concept, because, when I swam that race, I swam the 100 breaststroke a couple of days before, and I went all out, and I went 106.0.
Yeah.
And in that race, I knew that I had two Russian guys next to me, because I like to watch people. I knew that they were going to go, so I just needed to be patient.
Yeah.
And I just was patient, and they took me. They took me in a 105.5. So I went up. I went half a second faster, and then when I went to 12.2 at the Goodwill Games, the world record at that time was 2:12.9 or 2:12 something, and I went 2:12.2. My best time in the 100 was 1:05.0. 1:05.0. Huh? So I went out nice and easy, and I went out in 1:04.6. I still remember when I turned at the wall, it's like, hey, you got to speed up a little bit here at the first 50, because I was 7. Now, a couple of days later at the Google Games in Seattle, I went the 100 breaststroke. I just went, and I tried so hard, and I went 1:04.6 the exact same time, and I couldn't come out of the water. I was it seemed like. So to me, I really understand that part. That and that's something that I'll try to apply with my athletes.
Yeah, well, last question on the strength and conditioning, then I'll get it off here, because obviously in a college setting, so much is getting where you have the swim coaches, then you have the allied strength coaches, and the strength coaches are a lot of times from other sports, a lot of football, people with football mindset, people that have been around land-based sports most of the time, where doing a lot of absolute strength training is what their staple is. Have you ever had any headbutting with your strength coaches along the way, trying to integrate them with the swim team and getting everything connected?
Oh, absolutely. I'll give you a story about West Virginia University.
Mm-hmm.
We had this guy, I forgot his name. He's out of coaching. He used to coach the football team at West Virginia with Fritz Rodriguez. And then he went on having this show on TV. And he coached at Alabama before that, and he knew the swim coaches. And so, but the pool was away. His office was away from the pool. Right? So he would write a program on a computer, give it to a graduate assistant, and the graduate assistant had to run. So first, to me, I didn't need, West Virginia, we're a developmental team, so I didn't need to have these guys in the weight room. They couldn't come out. They would come out of the weight room and couldn't move. Move. And then I had to
work with.
So, long story short, at one point, I was at nationals. We got into big fights with because the strength and conditioning coach, this guy, Mike Barwis, his name, he would be like, "But Sergio, what? Do you think I don't know?" It's like, hold on. I think you have a lot of knowledge, and I want to learn from you. But have you coached anybody at the Olympic Games, or have you done? No. Are you going to be in the pool with me every day? No. You are giving me a graduate assistant that if I ask him, how does the breaststroke pool go? He had no clue.
Whoa.
So I'm sorry about that. This is 2000 and something.
Wow.
And 2004 or 5. Long story short, I'm at nationals in Irvine with my team in the summer. My AD calls me, not the swimming AD, but the top AD. Sergio, what's going on? Blah, blah, blah. What happens with Mike and you? And I'm like, hey, this problem. Well, you need to work with him. I says, no, I don't need to work with him. Because are you going to fire him if we don't swim well? No.
Yeah.
So if you want me, if you want Mike to coach the swim team in the weight room, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to move. This is what I told him. I'm going to move to Boca Raton, where my brother is. I'm going to send you the practices by fax, or whatever it is. And you can have a graduate assistant. You're paying me, though. You have a graduate assistant giving them the practice and see how it goes. Well, don't say that. He says, yes, I say that because it's not his team. It is my team.
But it's all too common, and I think it's finally getting better at these universities. But like you said, I mean, it's not like West Virginia, maybe a developing Division I, but not like a podunk Division III by any means. You guys had like Andrew Langenfeld on that team and a lot of good swimmers at the time. So obviously you had good swimmers. So it just was something that I think the strength coaches just need to go to swim sessions, work with the coaches, and be supplemental to what the program's trying to do.
Well, the
that's
problem
is so good for so many years. I know, Brian, we've talked about it before with PK down there. It's just a huge asset to have when it is clicking on all cylinders.
Right.
But the problem is that people don't think that way.
Yeah.
You have an conditioning coach that thinks that's his program. And I'm sorry, it's not his program or her program. It is the program of the head coach.
Mm-hmm.
It's simple, And the strength and conditioning coach can educate the coach, but has to follow what the head coach wants. Like right now, for example, I don't get into it because I don't want to get into the weights. I just tell the strength and conditioning. I give her my season plan or my thoughts. She understands how I think and what I think it's very good for. And my only requirement is that if my swimmers come to practice and they get cramped up, the first year I had, 12 to 15, 17 kids every day cramping up in practice, we're done. We're not lifting a single weight. Do you understand? Now, if that happens, you might lose your job. Because like I honestly, I can live. If I had in high school realized the average 43.6 without lifting weights, think about what I can do in college.
Right. Yeah.
Like one of my swimmers here, Ian Hall, when I came, he was already fast. He didn't really buy into it, what I was doing, because the assistant coach that I had was so insecure that he was the sprint coach. But at that time, I told them that I was going to write the practices for everybody because they needed to learn how I thought. And later on, that's how, when I hired them, that's what I told them. I hire you, but you might not write a single practice for a year or 2 years. You need to understand how I think, because if you end up leaving, I need to bring somebody else that is going to think also the same way. Normally the head coach is the constant of a program, hopefully,
And well, it applies to nutrition as well, and PT and everything, right? Not just strength.
No, it's huge. And like you're saying, and creating that culture and having consistency in the culture, Sergio, is huge. And obviously there's a lot of programs and a lot of workplaces that don't have that cohesiveness, and kind of things get off the rails when the staple body isn't at the top, making sure that the parts underneath on that triangle are all on the same page, because the bottom triangle pieces might move. So it needs to all be working. And on a college system, you have nutrition, PT, strength coach, assistant coaches, so on. It's huge. But
think about this too. Think about this guy that I was telling you.
Yeah.
He was 19.3 when I got here. And I'm pretty sure that the way he trained, he would have been 18.9, 19.0. But he won 19.3. His best in the 100, I don't think he never broke 40, 44 or whatever it was. He ended up going 42 something. Wow. So he was very reluctant not to do so much power all the time, but to understand how to swim, because he could swim very fast, but they never taught him how to understand details. I wanted to take him off the weight room. Finally, 10 weeks, after no lifting weights.
10!
He goes 22-1 long course. Almost makes the Olympic team for Hong Kong. 22-1. So he comes up to me and is like, Sergio, I really need to start believing about what you're telling me. Because I'm not telling you that the weights are not important, but at some point, they're not necessary. You have to utilize. And if I have a 10 of power and I can only use a 3 in a consistent race, that's horrible.
Yeah.
If I have a 6 of power and I can use a 5, I'm going to swim faster than the guy has a 10 and I can only use 3.
Yeah.
Use 9, 7, 3, 3, 2, 2, 1, 1. And by the end of the race, he's done.
Yeah.
Negative 10.
It's so interesting to see the mix of people, though. Like Bill Pilzik, is one that stands out to me as the guy who's, first guy to beat Alex Popov in years, and he looked like a twig. I mean, he just like wasn't a big guy. It was all about technique and speed and quickness. And, that was one thing that Due Dragana told us. He wasn't a big guy, but he just focused on speed and technique. And he looked around, and all the rest of the guys that he was racing were a lot bigger than he was. He's just like, hey, I'm going to focus on, how to move within the water. It doesn't matter if I can smash it. So, yeah. I wanted to know, though, so you talk about sitting for 2 hours with Doc Councilman and soaking him in. And, I imagine that not everybody was sitting there doing that. First of all, like, where does that come from? And did you always believe that you were going to be a coach?
Well, when I was young, such I wasn't that good. I always wanted, my dream was to coach an Olympic champion, you know. But I think what it comes, I'm a dysfunctional, and probably I have been as disrespectful to people like anybody in the world. But I think I was, by example, my mom taught me to respect elderly people, you know. To me, I have somebody like Doc Councilman. He's brilliant. That he really cares for me, because you can feel it. You know, I might not understand what he says, but I can feel that he wants me to be happy and a good person. So to me, I just sit with that person to try to be with that person. You know what I mean? I never thought that I was sitting with him to learn how to be a coach. You know, people talk about him about a great biomechanist and a great physiologist or whatever it is, but he was an amazing psychologist, much better than anything else. You know, and I can say all that later on, reflecting different moments. You know, at that time, you just do something that you feel you need to do. You know, like it wasn't like planned. You know,
you have this aura about you, though. You have this energy about you that is, you know, it is something that all of the great coaches that I've ever been around have. There's a presence that you carry. And I feel in a short time, like having a conversation with you, that it's impacting me in a way that, you know, I want to come back and just listen to what you have to say. It's that kind of thing about you. I'm just wondering, you know, just is that what you feel like you've gained from, you know, from listening to people like Doc that come from your mom?
I probably from my mom. You know, I think my mom, I did so many bad things when I was a kid, and I got beat up in school by a teacher, or I got put, you know, things, you know, I was almost kicked out 3 times from the school. And in the past, they were able to, with a ruler, beat you up and, you know, whatever. And so if you did that to me, you lost it, because I was going to be a menace to you the rest of your life. Wow. But my mom was always, if I did something really wrong, she never raised her voice. She sat me down and made me understand, Sergio, you have the choice of doing this or not. But if you keep doing this, my life and your life is not good, you know. And so all those moments that she told me all those things, I think had a really big impact for me, because for anybody who really, my mom worked nonstop for us, you know, and like, for example, when I was a high school kid, or before I went to high school, I wasn't a very good swimmer, and I had the choice to go into a private high school or a state high school. The private high school was very expensive. The state high school was free. The private high school had 120 students between the four grades, 30 people per class, with teachers for every class. Many athletes were there. They were very good. The national high school, the public high school, had thousands of kids, and nobody cared. So my mom asked me, it's like, hey, Sergio, what do you think you need to do? So I need to go to the private high school. And because if I go there, I think I can become a good swimmer, and they're going to help me go to college, you know? And she looks at me and says, okay, do you promise me that you will get a degree? Because she knew that I was going to work hard in swimming, because I always did. And I said, absolutely. I want to be a swim coach. I need to go to the physical education school in Spain, in Barcelona. So I'm going to graduate and I'm going to do that. Never asked me anything. She got another job. And for 4 years, she got 3 jobs.
Wow.
And, so I had 2 other siblings, you know, so it was an interesting dynamics, you know. For many years, if I wanted to say good night to my mom or hello, I had high school from 3 p.m. until 9:30 p.m. So I get out of the school at 9:30 or 10, whatever, and I go through the hospital, just knock in, say good night to my mom, and go home.
Wow.
You know? So I think I learned a lot from my mom. I think my mom has been a very good person in that sense. You know, she's always been helping people, you know.
What about your coaching style? So, you know, you've talked about how I've heard you say this, and you and I talked a little bit about it the other day, about having patience to observe someone and withhold feedback, and you know, have the time to observe and find the right time to give feedback in the right place to give it to, and find the right things not to say as well. How did you develop that?
I think I developed that in the streets in Barcelona. And I'll tell you why. Barcelona is a very creative city. You have musicians, the streets, it's a very peaceful city. So I spend a lot of time in the streets watching people, watching pickpocketers and this and that, and just sitting and watching for hours how people interact and don't interact. So I think I developed an ability to observe what people and anticipate what people might do or might not do. And then I really believe that I taught my coaches how to help me get to the place that I wanted to be, because my coaches didn't believe in me. Like, you probably don't know this, but I was the national record holder for 13 years in the 200 freestyle. In 1995, unshaved and tapered, I think it was 95 or 93 or 94. One of those years, I was top 15 in the world in the 200 fly.
Luke was telling me before this, he gave me a rap sheet that for a 10-year period from 86 to 96, at least in one of these events, you were ranked top 25 in the world. 100, 200 breaststroke, 200, 400 IM, 200 free, and 200 fly. That's a
400 freestyle. My senior year in college, I didn't want to swim. I didn't want to go to NC2As because I was exhausted of being by myself. And my coach, the head coach, said, "Sergio, you have to go." I said, "Okay, if I go," and Joseph is, "You have to go. I don't want to swim the 200 IM. I want to swim the 500 freestyle." I was like, "But how are you going to do that?" He says, "Well, you need to make the cut, and you never swum this. So just let me figure it out." So I talked with Rick Curl. I went to Luxembourg, that they have an international meet in February. I went, I think, 356 or 357 unshaved. And at that time, that qualified me for NC2As. I went to NC2As, shave in the morning. I missed the final by 2 or 3 100ths of a second because I didn't know how to use my legs and I used them too much. At night, I just raced this guy from Stanford and beat him at the end, and I went 4:19. That was the fourth fastest time 31 years ago at NC2As. So to me, it's like I did all that not because I was an amazing athlete. I think I learned how to understand who I was, even though I couldn't do that at the Olympics because I got scared. But through most of the time, I could feel, if you know Chris Martin, the coach Nelson Dibble, he used to coach at Princeton. That year I went to train. They wanted me to swim the Eastern Conference Championships, and Joseph didn't want. He says, "No, he has to get ready for NC2As." And the head coach said, "We gotta go. It's good for the team." Blah blah blah. So Joseph says, "No, he can only go on the last day." So on Saturday, the only things that I could swim was the 200 breaststroke or the mile. The mile, in one of the dual meets, I swam, I think it was 9:11 in the 1,000 at the beginning of the season. So I qualified for that because in the past, the Ivy Leagues and all this used to take the 1,000 time to go for the mile.
Okay.
So Joseph did it on purpose. He got me 2 of the hardest practices that you could imagine on that Friday. An hour of trial that you couldn't remember. I drove 6 hours or 5 hours that night to Princeton. I slept in somebody's couch in one of the rooms. The next day, I qualified in the morning, the 200 breaststroke. And with my 9:11, I was in the final in the mile. And I had no clue what I'm going to do. So I'm warming up and I'm thinking, how can I pace my legs and do this and do that? So I swim the mile. I go 15:25, I think, unshaved and taper. I win the mile, and 15 minutes later, or 20 minutes later, whatever it was, I won the 200 breaststroke and beat Nelson Dibble. And Nelson Dibble, and there was an Olympic champion in 1992. Yep. And as I'm walking by, his coach grabs me and says, "You guys, this is a swimmer." And I'm like, "Huh?" Like, he just swam the mile. He's unshaved, goes 15:25, wins, and now he wins the 200 breaststroke.
Dude, that's a crazy combo. I've never heard of anybody doubling that. Do you remember what you went in that 2 breaststroke?
I think it was 157 or 157 because that was the record at Princeton for a long time. I think
You should have your swimmers do that. Have you ever do that? Have them do miles and then back it up with the 200 breaststroke in 15 minutes all out?
Like
We have a bad joke here, and I'm going to say it again. I'm sorry, but you're the first athlete that has competed in 2 sports in our show. You swam and you did breaststroke. Sorry. But in 92, you were compared to Spit, and in some articles I read, and talk to me about that. Was that a pressure on you? Did you hear those comparisons, and what happened in 92 and afterwards? Just talk to me about how your career continued with the development and some disappointments, how you handled that, and how you use that to help your swimmers now.
Okay. Well, yeah, this because this I think would have a good with what Brian was asking me why I am the way I am as a coach. I was going to retire in 1992, my hometown. 24 years old. I thought I had a chance to win. I'm training with the best guy in the world. We're training back to back. We're doing some things in practice that you could not understand, and not understand. Believe. It would be like. Yeah. And then I go back to Barcelona, and when I touch the wall, in the pool that I trained for so many years, because the pool of the Olympics was built in 1972, they just refurbished it, but I trained there for long. And in that facility, there were so many Spanish, like Catalan and Spanish people rooting for me, because in the '88 Olympics there was only 4 medals in all the sports, for Spain, and I was the first one, and it was like a big deal, So I remember when I touched the wall, the first thought that I had is like, well, now I cannot stop swimming. I can't. I don't know how long. And I told my wife and I told my mom, I don't know how long and I don't know why I need to keep swimming. So I swam for 4 more years, and they were the worst years of my life swimming, in the sense that I trained very hard, and then I had a heart problem. I trained very hard. I had a knee problem. Some things that in my events didn't allow me to perform, but I was swimming so fast in everything else. So it was really hard 4 years. That those 4 years taught me one thing: to understand that when I was 12, 13, 14, 15, I would have given a hand, an arm, and a leg to be in the Olympics and to be 4th. And now I didn't appreciate my life because I touched the wall and I got 4th in the Olympics, that I thought it was the worst place that you can get in the Olympics. So my thought process was, I remember that if I want to become a good coach, and I need to teach my athletes to understand the moment in time. I don't know if you've seen, sometimes I have a hashtag that's called the moment in time. And to me, the moment in time is everything that we work for. And that's your moment. When the better that you become in anything in life, you start losing ownership of who you are. And that happens at any level. Doesn't matter. You can be the best at the Monopoly in your home, and then you start having pressure to be the best at Monopoly in your home. Well, imagine as an athlete, and all of you have experienced that, your parents, the press, people start living all their dreams through you, and you forget why. What is the satisfaction of going and training, going and winning, and going and losing and crying? But there's a satisfaction there, because you know that if you gave your 100% at that moment in time, there's nothing else you can do in life. Nothing. And you can cry for 5 minutes and you have to move on. So to me, that was 4 years of a lot of interesting situations where I couldn't see that, and by the time I retire, I came to terms to that, that if I want to be a coach and help people that cross my path, I have to teach them to understand the moment in time. Might not make sense for people, but that's I think the moment in time is a very important thing for me.
It resonates.
What are some of the keys that you took away from Joseph Nagy? Because we're looking at, I don't know if he still coaches Goethe, but he's coached some of the leaders. You were coaching Cordis for a while, and you've obviously impacted, had huge impacts on guys like Murphy and Schooling. But I'm curious about breaststroke specifically. What besides letting someone just do their own technique, there's got to be some principles that you picked up from there that you apply to other swimmers. What are they?
Oh, absolutely. I think the biggest principle, the bottom line is about the center of gravity in breaststroke. Right?
Yeah.
And in breaststroke and butterfly is the center of gravity. That's the most important thing that you have to look into. And probably in backstroke and freestyle too, but it's, you move a little bit different. But if you can keep the center of gravity close to the surface of the water, your speed is going to be constant. And that's a very hard thing to do, because if you watch very powerful swimmers, they can go very fast at the beginning. At the end of 100 breaststroke in long course, they start going vertical. And people go, oh, they're tightening up. No. What's happening is that the center of gravity is getting lower and lower. So exponentially, they're losing speed. Makes sense? So how can you keep your center of gravity close to the surface? Like if you look at Pankratov, one of the first guys that start breathing besides Mel Stewart, and I never spoke with Mel Stewart about this, but if you look about Mel Stewart or Pankratov breathing on the side, it's not because it's more comfortable. If you analyze that, I don't understand why all these great biomechanics and minds in the world haven't come out and say it. It's about the center of gravity because the hips stay in the same place.
Yeah.
So, like when you look at the 200 breaststroke at the World Championship, at the Olympic Games, when Mike Barman went 210, people were like, "Wow, he's speeding up," and you should say, "Wow, everybody else is slowing down." Makes sense?
Yeah.
Because he's staying constant. Makes sense? And that's the key. Now, how can you work on that? Well, you have your hands. Depends, you can teach this way for breaststroke or this way for breaststroke. This way for breaststroke, you use your forearms, your biceps, so it's less demanding. This way for breaststroke is more powerful. You use your biceps right away. So when you do this, the water pushes you up. So what happens when your body pushes you up? Your center of gravity goes up, goes down. When you press out, you're going to slide out. It's less powerful, but when you slide out, you can keep your hips in the same place if you move in the right way.
Yeah.
How you speed up your ankle to your feet. Now you can see some people doing kind of a butterfly kick, small butterfly kick. But the concept of speeding up the heels towards your butt is because the sartorius is such a big muscle and very thin, and it goes from the hip, kind of an S, to the knee, and it helps you rotate your ankle. So, if you're going to speed up the second part of the kick, you're going to catch the water at the last moment. For some people, that's fine. For some others, it's not. So you have to understand if they need to do that or not. We tried with Kevin Cordes, and Kevin, if he did that, he would bring his knees in, and he will lose his center of gravity. So
no, I think you nailed it. I mean, it all boils back to body position and, like you said, maintaining that alignment. But in every stroke, but I think especially breaststroke, and you're getting into the evolution of the kick and how obviously we still see some different styles, but more and more gravitating towards that more narrow dolphin-like kick and breaststroke. Mel Marshall called out some of the ISL athletes for doing dolphin-style kicks and big up kicks and things like that. Where do you see the future of breaststroke going, and do you think this is becoming too gray of an area where it is kind of an illegal kick?
There's so many little things that have happened through the time that we've swum that I don't know. Come on, everybody, if they can, they're cheating. I'm sorry. Like if they can put a kick here or do this, they'll do it. It's very hard. If you watch Petey's kick without analyzing it, you might think that he's doing a little bit of a butterfly kick up. And who knows if when you get tired, those feet go down, and the moment they go down, they should be disqualified. Yes or not? Yes. So I think I don't know. I never thought about it. I think it's changing, and you have to change,
Yeah.
But you have to be very careful because there's certain principles that you have to hold them still, If you look at, the breaststroke right now is really the 200 breaststroke, for example, more people are going 207, some 206, 203, 206. But when you go 58, you cannot break 210. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, come on. It's like if I went 48 in the 200 freestyle and I couldn't break 2 minutes in the 200.
Yeah.
Like, not like that, but so I don't know. It's they're different events. I don't know. I never really thought about where we're going. I just try to evolve with the athletes that I have.
It's interesting. John and I spoke to Leah Atkinson, and her pullouts are the same from 10 years ago, where she kicks at the same time she pulls on her pullouts. So she hasn't changed that, because that's what works well for her, and she's one of the best in the world at that. So I love the IG you did with Brian when you guys talked about you just do what's good for you and what works well for you. I coached for a number of years, and Sergio, I would want to change an athlete as soon as I saw them when I was younger. If I saw a low elbow, I want to know how to fix it. I just don't understand that. Where do you get that drive to have the patience, recall, and change how you think to what's best for that athlete, not what's best to what you think is in your mind? It's pure empathy. That's incredible.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't like to. I need to understand that I can change something. Like, for example, you watch Kevin Cordes, and you watch him swim the 200 breaststroke, and the first 100 he can go 007 or 006 with 11 strokes and 13 strokes, and you think, wow, he floats. That guy floats in the water. Now you have Kevin Cordes do a running dive, whoa, and go in the water fast, and you tell him to float. All right, you go, wow, I couldn't go as fast as him, but I could float for 25 meters. Huh? Yeah. I could float on top of the water, crawl my toes a little bit, and slowly I keep moving. Now, Kevin, you will never think that this happens to him. He goes in with a speed that is unbelievable. Wow. And at one point, he sinks. It's like, there's no he goes like this. Wow. And he goes to the bottom of the pool. Would you think that when you watch him swim? No.
No, his back is so high in the water. It's incredibly high.
Yeah. So he understands so well when is the last moment that he can keep himself there. Because we try, like, for example, in breaststroke, one of the tricks that you can have is like when people finish that kick like this, instead of pushing butterfly kick, then a lot of coaches tell them, push your kick up. You just crawl your toes this way. Crawl your toes. If you crawl your toes, your center of gravity doesn't go down, because the human being is going to do this. Pump, finish the kick, and then naturally the toes go down. And in the moment that your toes go down a little bit, your center of gravity moves down.
This is totally version. Yeah.
Now, when you watch a dive, people dive. I never did the track star, so it's very hard for me to understand it. But when I watch one person, when I watch them, and they go like this, the feet go up, one higher than the other, huh? And then they get in the water, and the first thing that they do is drop their feet like that. You've seen it so many times. Bruno Fratos does it. You know how hard, like if you teach them how to, when they're in the air, don't push anything. When they're in the air, crawl your toes.
Yeah, relax your ankles. Yeah.
Just crawl your toes. Just do this. What happens is that your feet keep moving in this direction. And you go like this. Yeah. And that's just a little thing. It's not even about technique or anything. It's like, go like that with no effort. There's a big change. The angle of your entry goes like this. You can go like that. That's what we taught, like Caleb Dressel or Ryan Murphy. All of them came from the same star. There's Roland Schoeman's. We studied Roland Schoeman's star because if you watch Roland Schoeman, he enters here. This is the hand. And the way he enters, his feet enter past where his hand enters. It's unbelievable. And he keeps moving in this direction. How many of us?
There's a video of, in 2005 Worlds, Schumann versus Crocker in the 50 fly in Montreal. It is amazing. The camera shot is directly behind the two of them. And I used to watch this video and freeze it right where you can see Schumann's feet and you see Crocker's whole legs. I mean, so like when you see the two behind, you see all of Crocker's, the backside of his legs, and all you see is Roland Schoeman's feet. because he's dead in a straight line. And it was just like amazing to watch. And he smokes Crocker on the start and goes on to win the world title.
But also he enters like this. Besides, he goes like this.
It's the ultimate broomstick. Yeah.
It's not just going in like that. He's just going. Instead, most of us enter and they go, and then,
Right.
So that's the thing. And you can learn that. You know how I learned about the toes? Watching some Asian breaststrokers that I had. I'm like, what are they doing? They were finishing their kick, and naturally they were curling their toes. I'm like, whoa, that's great. And you watch them, and I took a couple of videos and watched them, and the thing wasn't moving. So now I can use it with some of the people. They don't feel it, and they finish the breaststroke kick, and then they drop their feet. They go like this. Boom.
And then, see why I'm a breaststroker? That's exactly why I didn't swim breaststroke well, guys. That's the only reason.
You didn't call your toes.
I think my toes.
Sergio, I got a few rapid fire questions for you. What's the hardest race in swimming?
Whoa.
Rapid.
I don't know. Any race is hard at a high level.
Nothing. That's all right.
You're the only one who hasn't answered. We've had like 100 interviews.
That's a fair. Should we go back to racing in briefs?
Why not? And then I go back to racing. No.
Hey, if that's what it takes to get you back to racing, perfect.
No. I if I wear a brief, it would look like I'm wearing a thong. So it's not.
We'll save that for your Saturday night. Hey, Olympic gold medal or world record?
Olympic gold medal.
What's the best world record on the books today?
I don't know.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, I guess the 200 freestyle maybe for the guy. I don't know. I honestly don't know. There's, I thought that by now the 200 freestyle would be broken, but that's it's been there for such a long time too.
Like everybody puts that 4 IM first. How long? So it seems like in the 200 breaststroke, we've been hanging around this 206 number to I guess 207 for a while. How long do you think till we see a big time drop? Do you think that's coming where somebody just goes 204?
I thought that by now we would be going 204, 205. I really thought. I had a couple of swimmers that I thought they could go that fast, but I wasn't able to help them out. But I think that's something that could be coming.
What does it take to grow a beard like that?
I don't know. I didn't grow hair until I was 22 or 23. So I don't know. Maybe.
Patience.
Patience.
Sergio, thanks for hanging out. That was super fun. We loved having you. Look forward to connecting again. It's fun to be with somebody who is so impactful to so many people throughout the sport of swimming. As we talked about the other day, it's like, you're all about information sharing, knowledge sharing. And like I said earlier, spending time around, just sitting, in a chair on deck next to you is the kind of thing where, people who you won't realize the impact that you have on people just because they're able to be around you. So I consider it a pleasure to share some time with you. I really appreciate it. And thanks for hanging out. Keep doing what you're doing.
Well, thanks. Thanks for having me. And just keep the podcast. That probably a lot of people really enjoy all these things, and they learn a lot.
Yeah, you keep doing it too. Right on. All right. Well, that's it for this episode of the Kick Podcast. Thanks, Sergio. That's it. See you guys.